Alright then guys, if you've seen any of the other exam question videos, you know what's coming up. Basically what we're going to do today is take these example questions from the sample assessment materials that I'll link in the description box below. We're going to transform them into new questions so that we can answer them based on the front cover of the Sun. So let's have a look then. Alright, so the first question to change is pretty easy. We're just going to change it to explore how the front cover for the Sun newspaper uses those following elements to create meanings. Question 2, we're going to have a look at how political context influences newspapers, which is quite a nice question I've come up with for you guys there. And then, not 3, 2b, but we're going to compare the representation of countries in both the Sun front page and this front page from the Daily Mirror. So let's get cracking then. First question, explore how the front page of the Sun uses the following elements of media language to create meanings. As always, here's the mark scheme. The only difference between 1, 2 and 5 marks are these individual words here. So as long as we're giving excellent analysis, we're focusing on those intended meanings, we should be looking at getting into that 5 mark category. And I would always advise, as I normally do, that you highlight the keywords of the questions and suggest colour coding each of these bullet points as well to help you, because you can, in your exam, as long as it's not a laminated copy of the resource, you can write on them, or you should be able to write on them. So in terms of our images then, we've got the image of David Cameron, but more importantly, we've got this entire background for the Sun, which is an image in itself. In terms of language, we've got our imperative, draw a red line, or else, which is very threatening. We've got the personal pronoun you as well. And our layout and design is going to be looking at the image as a whole. So let's have a look then. I'll do this one on images and then I'll mark it and show you what I think it would get, and then for language and layout and design you guys can let me know in the comments section what you think I'd get for those sections. In keeping with the conventions of the paper, the Sun devotes its entire front page to a single image. In the background it's clear to see a map of Europe that's been edited to show only the UK and 2 other countries, Romania and Bulgaria. This illustrates the narrative as the audience can assume what the story will involve even without reading the headline. A second image that is used is the candid close-up of Prime Minister David Cameron. The paper has chosen to use a candid image as it makes the Prime Minister seem like he is unprofessional, fitting into the idea that he doesn't care about the public who he is meant to serve. Now I know that I could have in this particular question commented on that red line and the fact that it makes the English flag, but one of the things that you need to do is to read all of those bullet points first, because if I'd commented on that here in images, I'd be repeating myself when it comes to layout and design, and you want to avoid repeating yourself even if they seem to be separate questions. Having said that, have I given an excellent and detailed analysis? Yes, I think I have. And have I given consistent focus on the connotations or intended meanings? Again, yes, I think I have. You don't need an awful lot of information here. You just need to be doing the right thing consistently in order to get those top marks. Here we go then. Let me know what you think I would get in the comments below or through Twitter. The language on the front cover of the Sun could be considered controversial. Initially, the paper uses direct address by using the personal pronoun you. This makes the demographic intrigued by what is happening and creates a connection that the paper hopes will produce more income through sales. Furthermore, the paper uses imperatives through the verbs tell and draw to make the demographic feel like they're the ones who are in control. And finally, they use threatening and enigmatic language which through the final phrase or else, which creates an aggressive and confrontational tone. And finally, layout and design. Layout and design are particularly important in the front cover of the Sun. The entire front page is devoted to a single story, which the paper has represented through both the background image, which is a map of UK and Europe, and also through the colour scheme used on the front page. The use of the red line presents a visual representation of the narrative as it is positioned next to the same phrase on the headline. However, it could also represent the red tape of bureaucracy that is likely to be holding back decisions based on immigration. Furthermore, it physically separates the UK from other countries, Bulgaria and Romania, indicating the ideology that the paper believes that these countries are to blame for the problem. The red line also creates a secondary graphic when combined with the white background behind the word immigration. Not only does the white line anchor the entire image by illustrating that the narrative is about, but it also creates a version of the English flag illustrating patriotism and national pride. Alright, question 2a then. You know I love my question 2a, guys, because you know exactly what I'm going to say right now. Explain how political context influences newspapers. Refer to the Sun front page to support your points. The focus for this question is always going to be on that context first. It shouldn't just be the sun, the sun, the sun, the sun, the sun. You need to focus on that political context and then bring in the sun as examples. Okay, so you're using political context to make your points, and your evidence for that is going to be the sun. Okay, so make a little plan if it helps. Okay, again, we're not looking at social context, we're looking at political context, but you can tell that I've just copied and pasted a lot of this information. Always proofread your work, guys, always proofread your work. So one way that political context influences newspapers is through the political party that the newspapers support. Another way it does that is through the bias that we get to see within their stories and on the front page. The role of the newspaper as well is also something that we might need to consider. Now the mark scheme again is very similar to what we saw for question 1, and we've got those same key words to distinguish whether you're in top band or slightly further down. And again, it's not that difficult to get into the top band. So let's have a look then. One way that political context influences newspapers is through the level of support that papers provide to political parties. There's my point, look, I haven't mentioned the Sun yet at all. That's my point, and it's all about that political context. A good example of this is the Sun, who often show their support for political parties during election seasons. Although they tend to side with whoever is in power, they predominantly support the Conservatives, which makes this example of the front page unusual in that they seem to be critical of David Cameron. Furthermore, newspapers are well known to hold bias and to show this within their stories. In this particular publication, the paper is clearly biased against immigration, which may explain the criticism against David Cameron. Finally, given that newspapers act as a voice for the general public, this is another useful way of gauging feelings toward politicians and the issues that they stand for. In this controversial front page, the connotation is that the population are concerned and fed up with the way immigration has been dealt with. Okay, so have I given excellent, detailed and accurate knowledge of political context? Yes. And have I given highly appropriate reference to, in this instance, the Sun? Yes. Okay, done. Another 5 marks in the bag, which is important because this question here is the one that matters the most, not only for this paper, but in terms of your exam, because it's the one with the most marks across both papers. Okay, so let's have a look at this split up and colour coded, comparing the representation of countries, not events, countries. Comparing the representation of countries in the Sun front page and the front page for the Daily Mirror. So we need to think about the choices that the producers have made. Anything that's going to be similar is going to be in blue. Anything that's different is going to be in purple. Alright, so our similarities then. They're critical of other countries, okay? So they're critical of America in the Daily Mirror, critical of Romania and Bulgaria in the Sun. They also sensationalise the stories to make those countries seem more negative. However, the opposite views of more economically developed countries, okay, and the reasons behind the representations are different. Now, our mark scheme is more detailed, but again, it's those same words throughout, so we should be very used to these by now. Let's have a look and see how I've done. Both front pages come from tabloid newspapers, which means that there are several similarities. For example, both newspapers feature sensationalised stories on the front pages. This is a common convention of tabloids, which can be seen through the confrontational language in the Sun and also through the exclamation used in the headline of the front page of the Daily Mirror. Similarly, the papers both seem highly critical of the countries that are included. For example, the Daily Mirror represents the stereotype that Americans are materialistic, which can be seen through the annotated image and also through the stand first, which connotes America and specifically Donald Trump's hypocrisy. In a similar sense, Europe is criticised in the Sun through the connotation that they are the ones responsible for the immigration crisis that the UK is facing. However, despite the similarities, there are differences that are also seen between the papers. For example, the criticism of European countries in The Sun displays a level of national pride for the UK and clearly supportive of the UK as a dominant and wealthy country. On the other hand, the Daily Mirror represents America, a more economically developed country, and in a negative light, particularly when compared to countries who are less developed. Some of the reasons for these differences is that the reasoning behind the representations is different. Immigration is something that could affect a large portion of the population, which makes the emphasis on the countries involved important. On the other hand, the Daily Mirror is specifically criticising Donald Trump, the US President, and by association the entire US as well, given that he is a spokesperson for the country as a whole. Not my best answer here, okay, but I've still hit parts of the top marks. So I feel like I have used not necessarily theories themselves, but I have referred to representation throughout, and I have used a lot of subject terminology. Again, because there isn't any theory in this as such, please take one of those paragraphs, rewrite it, put a theory in it, put it in the comment section below so that we can share our ideas and you guys can improve on my work. I do think I've given appropriate comparisons, and I think I've given well-reasoned judgments, but as I've said in each of these videos so far, following the first exam, a lot of us were talking on Twitter, and some of the advice that I've been given from people who actually marked the exam is that you need to have a paragraph at the bottom that gives an overall judgment. Overall, I feel that. Overall, I think that. And if you do that, then you're definitely hitting that bottom bullet point in that top band. Hopefully you found it useful. We've got quite a few key terms today. As usual with the key terms, consider making some revision notes out of them, perhaps on note cards. If you like to, please subscribe, hit the button down below, and if you hit the bell icon next to it, you get instant notifications every time I post a new video, and you can get in touch with me through the comments section below or through Twitter @media_revision. I'll see you guys later for another video.